Bleach Thousand Year Blood War episodes 9 and 10, specifically the parts entailing the battle between Kenpachi and Unohana, encompass why I love Bleach so much. In the build-up to this encounter between Kenpachi and Unohana, the Soul Society has been decimated at the hands of the Quincy. Yamamoto Genryusai is dead, Shoujo Sasakibe is gone, and Soul Society is left in a pile of ruin and ash. Left to lick their wounds, they have to seek ways to get stronger. And with his newfound power as the head captain of the Gotei 13, Shinsui Kyoraku decides that he would like to teach Kenpachi Zaraki Zanjutsu, the killing arts, and gives the responsibility of teaching Zaraki to Yachiru Unohana, who is revealed to be the first generation Kenpachi of the first generation Soul Reapers, said to be the strongest of any era. Now, right off the bat, the fact that Yachiru Unohana is called as she is, and the fact that Kenpachi names Yachiru is the exact type of unspoken storytelling that appeals to me. For a long time, we've known that Yachiru got her name from Kenpachi. Kenpachi gave her her name, but we never knew where he got it from. Not until now. With the reveal that the name Yachiru comes from Unohana, it begins to build to a deeper relationship between Kenpachi and Unohana, something that piques your interest and drives you to wanting to learn more. The episode continues, and in the lowest level of Muken, Kenpachi appears to do battle with Unohana. Now, Saori Goda, the color designer of Bleach, revealed on Twitter last week that she isn't a fan of drawing in complete darkness, and so the team collectively came up with the idea to have the pillars within the Muken give off this white light as though lights were seeping from the cracks so that they could illuminate the scene instead of just fighting in pitch black darkness or having to figure out another source of light for those down in Muken. This approach gives Kenpachi versus Unohana this very glossy fight as though they were battling underneath a starlit, moonlit sky, and I absolutely adore it. Unohana turns around to reveal her new demeanor, and we see those eyes, those devilish, weirdly sensual eyes, staring straight through Kenpachi, and a smile, the smile only a killer could have, the smile only belonging to those who have murdered innocent lives over their lifetime. You also get a reveal of the reason why she wears her braid at the front. Because I don't know about you guys, when I first saw Unohana and noticed that she wore her braid in the front, I always wondered why. Why is she wearing her braids in the front and not in the back? But now we know why. She does it because she has a scar she's not proud of. She does it because she doesn't want people to know that she has that scar. But now in her battle with Kenpachi, there's no reason to hide anything. She undoes those braids to reveal who she truly is. No more facades. This is the real Unohana. As opposed to the big spectacles we saw of Ichigo versus Yuha or Yamamoto versus Yuha, the battle between Unohana and Zaraki feels more grounded. It's not as explosive as the other battles were. It's very intimate, and that intimate approach to their battle actually adds depth to the fight itself, in my opinion. Unohana fights in somewhat of a graceful fashion, evading Kenpachi's swing by jumping on his hands and bouncing off walls and hiding different types of blades within her garment and inflicting damage on him that way. And as she continues to overpower Kenpachi, she knocks his sword out of his hand and pushes him up against a pillar with her sword at his throat. Kenpachi then realizes that he's at death's door. He can feel Unohana's murderous intent, and he knows that Unohana isn't here to play games. And in that moment, he remembers when he first met her. He remembers the joy he felt encountering someone who made him feel fear, who made him feel the joy of battle. And in that moment, realizing that he would die without defeating Unohana, it broke him. And the whole Kenpachi Zaraki, one of the most, quote, masculine men in the Bleach franchise, stands there with his back against the wall and tears running down his face, distraught that he will not get the opportunity to kill Unohana. And in such a savage fashion, Unohana doesn't say a word, her expression doesn't change, she just stabs her sword through his neck all the way to the other side as he spits blood and blacks out, only to wake up again wondering what happened. This cycle continues on and on and on, and we begin to learn more about the reason Unohana is doing what she's doing. You see, Unohana believes that she is responsible for Kenpachi's lack of strength. She believes that Kenpachi's predicament now is because of her sin. And if you're wondering what her sin was, we learned that years ago, hundreds of years ago in the past, Unohana was ravaging through the Rukon district trying to find someone to make her feel the joy of battle. And during that time, she encountered a very young Kenpachi Zaraki who already had his Zanpakuto in hand. Now, Kenpachi had just gotten done destroying a pile of dead bodies that he just left out there in the open, and he struck Unohana and inflicted the wound we now know today. A young Kenpachi at that time was stronger, clearly stronger, than a peak Unohana. That is how strong Kenpachi Zaraki is as a fighter. Him as a young boy is stronger than Unohana when she was at her peak. And in that moment, even though he enjoyed the battle and even though he felt the fear for the first time in his life up to that point, he began to notice what would happen if he lost someone to fight with like this. He began to dread a world where he could no longer feel the joy of battle like he did back then. And in that moment, when he realized that Unohana was weaker than him, he began to put limitations on his power. He subconsciously began to limit his own abilities so that he could enjoy battles for longer. That is why Kenpachi Zaraki barely lost to Ichigo, and that's why Kenpachi Zaraki barely defeated Noitora Gilga. And she goes on to reveal that these limitations Kenpachi subconsciously puts on himself. Whenever he enters battle and whenever he encounters a near-death experience, the limitations begin to wear off. He begins to become unshackled. Bit by bit, he's returning to who he was before, which explains the trajectory of Kenpachi's power as you go through Bleach, because he doesn't train, but every time you see him, he's gotten stronger. Why? Because every time he goes into a near-death experience, he comes back stronger, because less limitations and less shackles are on him. And so, Unohana, wishing to rectify her sin, decides that she will kill Kenpachi and then revive him, and then she will kill him again and then revive him, over and over and over again, as many times as it takes for him to return to who he was before. And as Kenpachi is getting overwhelmed by the cycle of death and rebirth over and over again, only to black out again, only to die again, only to wake up again, only to fight again, and it goes on and on and on. And as the cycle continues, his doubts begins to fade away. All the clouds of doubt, all the distractions, all of that begins to fade away as he becomes more and more immersed into the battle he is fighting, until he eventually returns to who he was before and strikes Unohana down with everything he has. But Unohana quickly heals herself and reveals that the reason she learned Kido is so she could extend the battle she's had over the years. He is elated, and Unohana then calls on her Bankai Minazuki, and the steel of her blade turns into blood, and the entire area is overrun with boiling blood that feels acidic in nature. Zaraki sees this and he's elated. He lets out a cry of pure joy as the two of them just continue to do battle. Yoshihiro Kano's elite animation just permeates throughout this entire section of the episode. It's beautiful to see. The compositing of the scene is elite, coloring the entire place in this blood red mystique. It's amazing to look at, and the animation spectacles themselves are some of my favorite in the entire season. She may not have told us what her Bankai does, but based on this episode, we know that Unohana uses Minazuki as a way to heal herself. The blood heals her wounds along with her clothing, I might add. The blood's acidic nature also burns those it comes into contact with, and Unohana is able to use it as somewhat of a conduit, where she whips it around as though the blood were like a tangible whip, and she uses that to fight Kenpachi. The entire scene was amazing. And as their battle rages on, the two of them just descend into madness, this proverbial perverted sense of joy that these two are feeling, being enthralled and engulfed in this battle that they love so much. It's dark, it's weird, it's perverse, it's messed up, but in a weird way, it's also beautifully poetic. There's a beautiful aspect to the entire scene, as crazy and as devilish as it was. Unohana's blood makes it look like they're fighting in a hellish paradise, and all you have to do is look into their eyes to know how much they're enjoying this battle. Kubo decides to depict their enthrallment and engulfment in battle as their skin fading away, just to reveal the skeletons, just to symbolize the fact that these two individuals are immersing themselves fully into the battle they're fighting. Every essence of their being, every essence of who they are is being immersed into this fight, and it's beautiful. It truly is. Kenpachi's fighting style completely changes, sidestepping and blitzing Unohana. He gets knocked down, but he gets back up, he keeps going, he keeps fighting, and he actually uses both hands to fight, throwing away this notion that he didn't want to use two hands. He just goes ahead and he uses both hands to fight Unohana. And eventually, as this back and forth continues, Kenpachi finally gets the killing blow on Unohana, and he strikes her down, defeating her, stabbing her right through her chest. And when he does so, and as she's bleeding out, he holds onto her, crying out for her to not leave him. And Kubo narrates this beautiful perspective of Unohana on this entire situation. that Unohana and Kenpachi both wanted to extend the rate at which they could enjoy battle, but they both went at it in two different ways. Kenpachi decided to place limiters on his body to allow him to enjoy battle for longer, and Unohana, in contrast to this, decided to learn healing Kido so she could extend her battles. But after a while, she finally learned that the real reason she learned Kido, its true purpose, was for this moment: to kill and revive Kenpachi as many times as she needed in order to bring him back to where he was before. She believed that the responsibility held by a strong individual once they find another strong individual is to make an important choice. It's either cut down the person so you remain as the strongest, or you have to become an obstacle for them to overcome. You have to act as a springboard so they can reach higher levels. And she believed that her purpose in life was to be a springboard for Kenpachi to reach levels she could never attain. As the light and the life fades from her eyes, she's not even sad. She's happy. There's a smile on her face, and Taguchi and Kubo paint the entire background a very beautiful white. And there's an absolutely beautiful scene where you see Unohana's hand holding her sword. And her blood is stained red. There's blood on her blade, but there's so much more blood on her hand holding the blade. And you just see the blood flow from her hand into the sword, and then she lets the sword go. It's a beautiful scene symbolizing Unohana letting things go and just relinquishing herself into the embrace of death, knowing that she has accomplished what she wants. And she dies saying this beautiful line about how comforting it is to die knowing that one's purpose has been fulfilled. She falls down, leaving her dreams, her hopes, and her wishes with Kenpachi Zaraki, who is left, seemingly to him, with nothing. But as he stands there looking at her motionless, lifeless body, he begins to hear a voice. He turns around to look towards his sword, which he threw away before, the voice of his Zanpakuto. And his Zanpakuto voice is female. It's a woman. It's a girl. The voice speaks to him, telling him about how close they've been from the very beginning, how they've watched Kenpachi all his life, and have been waiting for him to finally hear her voice. She welcomes Kenpachi and then imparts her name to him, something we don't see, but we know where this is going from here. Episode 9 and 10, specifically the part dealing with Kenpachi and Unohana's battle, were very well made, they were very well paced, and the battle animation of their fight was exquisitely done. I thoroughly enjoyed what we got here between Kenpachi and Unohana, not merely for the animation spectacles, which was great, but more so for the storytelling impact, the character development that Kenpachi has gotten, and the fact that Kenpachi's potential is so great that in order to awaken it, somebody had to die. Someone had to give their life so Kenpachi could return to where he needed to be, giving his growth that much more value. Unohana sacrificed herself so that Kenpachi could ascend. It's one of the purest forms of love that you'll see in Bleach. Not romantic love or platonic love, just this connection she has with this other individual, where these two kindred spirits who have felt alone all their lives finally find each other, and it's so complex that it's not about family, it's not about romance, it goes beyond that. It's so much more complicated, and they don't even try to explain it. They just understand it. Both of them just understand what the other means to the other. And Unohana felt it was her duty to sacrifice her life so Kenpachi could ascend. And that, in of itself, it's a beautifully poetic tale of a killer who was killed and killed and killed, goes into a life of healing to sacrifice herself so that another may live. It's beautiful. It truly is. This is your boy Rebirth. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next video, peace out.